me and John's plan was to go to France, where we just met a couple of people, and we were going to start busking in France and just living by the beach. That was the plan.
So what are you guys saying, man? It's the Collective, and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Underground. Today I've got a special guest, member of the group The Manor. It's Danny Graft himself, South London's finest.
We like to say South London's finest. Danny Graft here, representing The Manor, and good to see the boys, The Collective.
So, you know, you obviously started early, like 2007, like ages ago. And now people can drop a song online and it's got like an overnight success and stuff. Can you tell me how you promoted your stuff back then, you know, before the internet blew up and everything?
Well, we're going back now. So this was before we had Instagram. YouTube was just kicking off at that point, really.
Yeah.
It was our first song we put out was in a Facebook group, which I don't think you guys, do you use Facebook groups? No, no one does. Maybe your mum does. Like, that's about it. But so yeah, it started in a Facebook group, and it was a song about fancying your best mate's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So we wanted to try and separate ourselves from early. We like to have little themes to the songs that you'd banter about, but you wouldn't usually hear in music.
Yeah, it's jokes, isn't it?
Yeah, this was like that was the angle. And again, we just like making people laugh. So that was sort of our the way we sort of come out with it.
You know, like speaking on the content of your music and stuff, I listened to the podcast Free the Geezer.
Oh, did you listen to it?
Yeah. Some of it, and there was like talk about like, you know, gambling, relationships, drugs and all that kind of stuff. How much has like the party culture played a part in, you know, making your art and everything?
It's definitely played a big part. It's inspired a lot of the songs, a lot of them about parties, but at the same time, you know, if you go out partying, you have a good time, you're going to have a few bad days after. So we've tried to sort of balance and make songs about both sides of the coin and get around that bit, because again, like especially as you get older, I think you start having a bit more of an awareness of your responsibility of the message you're putting out, because it's easy to say like you're living a dream, showing big videos, you know, you're having the best time in the world, but if you don't show the other part, you're misleading a lot of young people into thinking it's all glitz and glamour, which obviously real life ain't.
So, you know, like, so we're talking about influences and stuff, you know, growing up in South London, like Bromley, Beckenham area, can you talk to me like how much that plays a part in your fashion, you know, you as a person, and, you know, just the music you release?
No, I can't. If I started saying I've got a big fashion sense, I'll get called out, because I own about 15 black t-shirts and 15 white t-shirts.
Is that the Danny Graft outfit?
That's my swag. I wear a tight t-shirt because when I ain't been gym, you still look like you got a little bit of size about you. And I'm very understated. I heard there was a quote. I think it was Arsene Wenger. I'm a big Arsenal fan, and he said, "If you wear, you're good. Come on." So he said, if you wear plain clothes, no one notices where you wear the same thing again. So you don't waste a load of money on things. So I'm very understated. I do wear Beckenham sort of stuff. Smart, just like, you know, a 40-year-old Essex lad, basically.
And how's it like played a part in your music, you know?
What, the culture from the area?
Yeah, just the culture from the area.
Well, massively again, because everything we really say in music, like a lot of it is direct quotes from our mates, from people in the area. Yeah. We enjoy giving shout. Like for me, nothing makes me laugh more if I do a little shout out that I know only the people from around here are gonna get, like an in joke. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
You talk to me about some of your first shows, like were they in Beckenham and everything?
The first gig we did, first proper gig was in Croydon. I forgot the name of the gaff. It's bad. I don't think it's still open now anyway. Yeah. But it was like a live lounge sort of night. They used to put some drum and bass nights on, and we were old school hip hop, so it was like you had a lot of. We were the liveliest ones there basically. Had a lot of conscious stuff there as well, and that was the first one. And then we did our first Beckenham gig in about 2012, and it's probably still to this day probably the most nervous I've been about doing a gig, just because I knew we had the whole area there. They'd never seen us perform. We had a nightmare on the night, like the mic stopped working halfway through the gig, there was limiters on the sound, but we all had a big party afterwards. But it was that was, I think, even that wasn't our best performance, it got everyone on board, because we all partied together after. it felt like a movement was happening around here.
Well, away from like, you know, the first gigs and everything, can you talk to me like, what's your favourite gig that you played? Is there any one in particular that you just remember?
Favourite gig? You know what? For years it probably would have been Coco, because we did a big like parade down the street afterwards. Like we planned it a few months before. It was like a drunk idea. I just gone, wouldn't it be crazy if we got everyone to just march down the strip from the gig in Islington all the way to the after party. So we got like a float out, like truck. We jumped on the back, had mics, went all the way down. So that was my favourite one for years. But until this past, it was October, and it was a festival, Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
And it was just, for me, it was quality, because when you go to a festival, you never know what you're going to have there. You don't know how many fans you're going to have there. You don't know how many people are going to join the tent throughout the show, how receptive they're going to be to you. And it was just, we'd had a mental night out before. We weren't in great shape going into it. And we just got everyone on side, and like you had people queuing up to get in the tent by the end of it. It was the best we'd ever performed. Everyone, the crowd was great. It went out live on Sky. It was on Sky Arts. We didn't even know we were on the telly at the time. So yeah, it was a great. That's probably one of my favourites.
Everything just went right that day then.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, obviously, you know, everything's going right now and stuff. But I hear like in 2015 that you guys were quite close to retiring and everything.
Yeah. We were semi-close. We were like, it was. I'm not gonna lie. It was half a. It was basically a gamble. It was like, look, let's call it a day. See what the reaction is. See if people care. We'll give it one last show, one last album. Obviously, if things went well, which they did, we continued. But to be fair, at the time when we first thought it, me and John's plan was to go to France, where we just met a couple of people, and we were going to start busking in France and just living by the beach. That was the plan. I was like, you know what? I want to get out of London. I want something completely different. But lo and behold, it was the most successful, even to this day. Really, that album was lived on for 7 years later.
So like, you didn't retire and everything, and now you've got to this point, and you know, obviously the pandemic's come around, and like as a creator myself and other creators I've spoken to, it had a huge impact on me. And even one of your music videos was about like quarantine, being in quarantine.
Literally.
How did you like get through that and keep inspired and everything, you know?
What I did personally was, I mean, because we couldn't go and do studio sessions, and a lot of other people suffering from lack of inspiration themselves, it was hard to get production in. So I said, look, I'm going to get a laptop. There was cheap deals on Macs. So I said, look, I'm going to get myself a MacBook. I'm going to get myself Logic, and I'm just going to try and teach myself a little bit of basics of music. Because I tried it before, but I thought I'd teach myself how to produce, so that I've always got an option for inspiration and stuff to write to. And I thought, especially when you're a writer who writes about going out and what's going on around you, there's not a lot to write about in lockdown, you know. So the only real option was, let's make some music and try and learn another aspect of the craft. That, I mean, at this point now, I'm thinking this is something that I'd like to do going forward. Beyond when I'm doing rap, I've now found something else that inspires me.
What is your writing process like? Do you just sit down and get to it, or what?
Yeah, I do. I sit. I'm I go through just music after music, so I could be writing one song, but I might write it to 6 different beats. Yeah. Just because I'll write a little bit, and then this will inspire me, that will inspire me. But it's a weird one, because you can't. I find it hard at times. Like, you will sit down and try and make yourself do something, and you can sit there for 10 hours and get nothing. Yeah. Or I can just out of nowhere, and that's probably the hardest thing I find with creating, isn't it? Because like with a lot of other jobs, you will get out what you put in. Yeah. Whereas with music, it feels a little bit unfair that sometimes you do nothing, you're rewarded with the best thing you've ever done, or you work for ages and you get nicked.
When you're in those moments, you know, you're feeling down or whatever, nothing's coming to you when you're writing. Are there any influences, like in terms of artists that you look to or stuff that have got you to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, like Jamie T's got to be up there as one of them. Jamie T, quality, isn't he? That's the thing, I've always liked him because of the way he wrote, very abstract, and I like writing like that, where he'll say certain things and you'll be like, right, get that completely. The next line, you're like, I don't even know what he's talking about, but I can still sort of relate to it. So he's been a big influence. It's hard to say. I think as well, one thing I got told years ago about writer's block was, when you get into it, go and watch a TV show, because you get into like someone else's thinking pattern, and you get into you immerse yourself in a new
Kind
world.
of like analysing language.
Yeah, and even or like reading a book, or just immerse yourself out of your own world, see the world through someone else's eyes, and then when you come back, you'll feel again. It might spark something out of you.
Is there any artists that you would love to work with?
Again, I'll probably say something like Jamie T. I love him. We were talking about him before, Bakar. Artists like that, yeah. Or any like of your top, I say top house producers, but I think a lot of house songs. We rap over house music, but then sometimes I think there's a fine line with house where you think, do you need that rapper on that house beat, or would that just been good with a little vocal? Do you know what I mean?
Some people just don't know like what genre to really put your music in, like UKG, whatever. What do you call your music?
We've made up some silly names. We used to call it pub step.
I love that one.
our label name that we've sort of had for years as our thing is Lagboat Records. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny because every time I explain it to, like, if I'm with a cabbie and I tell them I do music, I'm like, we are party rap, I guess is probably the best term for it, because we've always tried different genres. Like there's nothing worse than sitting down for months on end with the same genre, because you just end up with the same flows. Yeah. It's like garage. After you've been doing it for years, you're like, I've heard this garage flow before. I've heard Skepta do it on grime or whatever. You've heard these flows done. So it's like when you come to a completely new genre, I think that's when you just get the best inspiration. Is why I've always switched it up.
Do you listen to like all different types of genres?
Yeah,
innit?
yeah.
You just want to expand what you want.
I listen to a lot of as I've got older as well. I now listen to a lot of classic FM.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's a calmers. Like when I wake up in the morning, it's like I used to put on a podcast around and I think I don't want to listen to this div talking about this nonsense. Classic FM starts my day right. Or in the evening as well, when you want to calm down, unwind, it's proper music.
Fair enough. Has it played like any influence in making your music then?
Well, it's made me realise how little I know about music.
Fair.
I think just the complexity of it, because I mean, when you sit down and produce, you're working with 3 or 4 chords, but the way you see music transition across a full symphony is next level science.
So you mentioned earlier, like being in a group, you guys have had the opportunity now over COVID to do your own thing and stuff. Has it ever been like difficult? There's 3 people, that's 3 rappers and like each song and everything. Has it ever been difficult getting your voice across and everything, and like your standpoint?
Yeah, we row over everything.
Is it?
Over everything, bruv. Like literally. I mean, it's always been like that. It's like we've had I think we've all calmed down now where we've had space from COVID and that, but whenever we've had periods where we're all in the studio all the time, you've got 3 loud voices. Always say you've got 3 frontmen. Yeah. Essentially, like in a band, you'll have a drummer and you'll have these different personalities, but we are literally 3 geezers, big egos, frontmen mentality, don't like being told we're wrong.
So you're enjoying the personal time then? Yeah,
I think we've all enjoyed the little breather, to be fair. And it's like, look, we can still... I think the worst we get on probably is when we're stuck in a studio or something for too long and we're deliberating over bits and bobs. But then the best we get on is when we're on stage on a show, because we go there, we know what we've got to do, we're all in it together, and that's almost like it's like a football match. Do you know what I mean? You're in with your team, and you're gonna go out there, and it don't matter if you've had a row all week. We've turned up to shows. I've had shows where I've turned up. I've not been speaking to John. I've not been speaking to Scott. Yeah. And you turn up and you just go, all right, mate, give him the nod. And then you just look at it, you're like, we've got to just get this job done. That's it.
Well, what's next for the Manor and what's next for Danny Graft?
Right, for the Manor, firstly, we've been working on this for like 2 years. Like I said, by the time this comes out, this will have already been announced. But we're putting on basically the culmination of all the live events we've done for the last 10 years. We've always wanted to have our own venue where we've got the freedom to put on all the acts we want to put on. Usually, like when we do our gigs, we get it from 7 till 10. We've secured the best venue in London. You've got some of my favourite artists performing all day. It's literally, like I say, we've been working on this. COVID's had this postponed 2 years in a row, and finally we're getting to do it. And I'm just buzzing, man, because it's just going to be the best show we've ever done. Like, it's going to be the craziest day, and I'm looking forward to it. And then for me personally, I've been trying to make a bit of Jamie T style indie sort of things. I've been doing a little bit more alternative, and I'll be putting it out soon. So,
all right, man. Thanks for coming on.
It's been an absolute pleasure, brother. Big up the collective, man.
Yeah, big up the collective, big up the man, and big up Danny Graft. Thank you very much, guys, and tune into the next episode next week.
Lovely.